I've worked night shifts at hotels for more than 15 years. Most of the time, it's quiet. The hum of the ice machine, the flicker of the security monitors, the occasional drunk guest stumbling to the elevator. But there are nights that never leave you. Nights that make you question what's real. Nights that change the way you see darkness itself. This happened back in 2011, when I worked at a small 3-star hotel off the interstate. We had 60 rooms, 2 floors, and a handful of regulars, truckers, traveling salesmen, and the occasional family passing through. It was the kind of place where nothing exciting ever happened, until the night room 217 called the front desk. The problem was, room 217 had been closed for renovation for weeks. The call. It was around 2:37 a.m. The lobby was empty, and I was halfway through my second cup of bitter coffee when the phone rang. "Front desk, this is Mark," I said. For a moment, there was only static. Then a woman's voice, soft and trembling. "There's someone in my room." I straightened up. "Ma'am, which room are you in?" 217, she whispered. "Please, send someone. He's standing by the bathroom door." My blood ran cold. Room 217 wasn't even active in the system. It had no keys assigned, no guest checked in, and the door lock had been disabled for maintenance. I looked at the monitor. The hallway camera on the second floor showed nothing. No movement, no light under the door of 217. "Ma'am," I said, trying to sound calm, "are you sure you're in room 217? "Yes, I can see the numbers on the door. Please." The line cut out. The room that should be empty. I grabbed my flashlight, called the night security guard, and told him to meet me upstairs. He was a big guy named Luis, but even he looked uneasy when I told him which room. 217, he said. "That one's sealed, man. They pulled the wiring last week." We went up anyway. The hallway felt unnaturally cold. The carpet squished underfoot, and the air smelled faintly like mildew and old paint. When we reached 217, the door was closed, but not locked. I pushed it open. Inside, the room was dark, but not empty. The air was colder than outside, and there was a faint sound, something like humming. Luis aimed his flashlight toward the bathroom door. It was half open. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. We stepped in. The bathroom light flickered on its own. The tub was full of water, and floating in it was a soaked white dress. No person. Just the dress. Luis whispered, "Man, what the—" I reached for the wall switch to turn on the main light, but there was no switch. Just torn wallpaper and a black stain on the plaster that looked disturbingly like a handprint. We backed out slowly. I was about to close the door when the phone behind us, the one on the nightstand, began to ring. 3 shrill tones echoing in the dark. Luis whispered, "Don't answer that." But I did. "Why did you open the door?" The same woman's voice. Soft, wet, and suddenly I could smell the water, moldy, heavy, metallic, like blood. I dropped the receiver. When I looked up, Luis was already in the hallway, pale as chalk. The records. The next morning, I checked with the manager. He swore no one had access to that room. I checked the call logs. No outgoing or incoming calls from 217 were even possible. The line was disconnected. 2 weeks later, a contractor working in the room told me something strange. He said that years ago, before the hotel was renovated, a woman had drowned herself in that bathtub after her husband left her. Her name was Mary Ann Cole, and she had died in, you guessed it, room 217. They'd tried to keep it quiet, repaint, rewire, replace everything. But you can't renovate away grief. You can't paint over what the dead remember. The last night. A few months later, I worked my final shift before moving to a new hotel. It was around the same time, close to 3 a.m., when the lobby phone rang again. I looked at the caller ID, room 217. This time, I didn't answer. But before I clocked out, I looked at the hallway camera feed. There she was, a pale figure standing in front of room 217, her hair dripping, head tilted, still waiting for someone to open the door again.
If you've ever worked the night shift at a hotel, you know the quiet isn't peaceful. It's heavy, like the building itself is holding its breath. Every creak, every flicker of light feels like something watching. The second story I'm about to tell happened at a different place, an older downtown hotel where I worked in 2015. It was one of those half-renovated relics from the 1950s with faded carpets, humming pipes, and an elevator that groaned like it was alive. What no one told me when I started was that the hotel had 4 floors above ground and 1 below. The basement wasn't listed on the maps anymore. They'd sealed it off after an incident. But sometimes, on the night shifts, I heard things down there. And one night, I made the mistake of checking the sound below. It was a stormy Friday in October, 2:18 a.m. to be exact. Power flickered twice that night. I was alone at the front desk. My coworker had called in sick, and the manager never stayed past 10. I was watching the monitors when I heard it. A faint metal clang, followed by dragging. It came through the vents from somewhere below. I checked the maintenance schedule. No one was supposed to be working downstairs. But the noise came again, longer this time, like someone pulling a heavy object across concrete. I grabbed my flashlight and the master key and went to investigate. The service elevator, the only way to reach the basement, had a rusted padlock. But when I reached it that night, the lock was hanging open. That's when I should have called security, but curiosity can be stronger than fear. I pressed the button. The elevator groaned awake and the doors slid open with a sigh of dust. Inside, a single button glowed faintly. B. The basement. The air grew colder as the elevator descended. When the doors opened, the smell hit me first. A thick, rotting stench of mildew, rust, and something sweet, like old fruit. My flashlight beam caught a maze of old laundry carts, broken furniture, and piles of forgotten linens. Everything was covered in dust except for one thing, a trail of footprints, bare and damp, leading away from the elevator. I followed. They led past an old boiler room to a door that shouldn't have been there, a steel door with a faded sign, authorized personnel only, closed since 1993. There was a flicker of light beneath it. And then I heard a voice.
You're late. I froze. It was a man's voice, raspy, almost playful. Who's there? I called. Silence. I tried the handle. It turned. The smell grew stronger. Inside was a small room, maybe 12 by 12. A single light bulb swung overhead. The walls were covered in hotel bed sheets, hanging like curtains. In the corner sat a metal cot, and on it, someone was sitting. A man, thin, pale, eyes sunken into dark sockets. He wore what looked like an old hotel uniform, but faded, discolored. His badge read, W. Turner, Maintenance. I said, "Sir, you're not supposed to be down here." He smiled. His teeth were gray. "I never left." Then he stood up. His movements were jerky, like his joints didn't fit right. As he stepped closer, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. His shoes were gone. His feet were raw, torn, leaving wet prints wherever he walked. The forgotten worker. Later I learned a man named Walter Turner really had worked maintenance there back in the 90s. He went missing after an accident in the basement. The official story was that he'd quit without notice, but the staff whispered something else, that he'd been trapped when part of the floor collapsed and they never found his body. But in that moment, I didn't know that. All I knew was that he was standing 3 feet from me, staring like I'd just woken him up. He whispered, "They closed it, but I'm still on shift." The light bulb above us began to flicker violently. The air grew thick, and then I heard the dragging sound again. But this time, it wasn't coming from the floor. It was coming from behind the sheet. I shined my flashlight there and saw shapes moving behind the hanging linens. Hands, dozens of them. I stumbled backwards, slamming the door shut, and ran to the elevator. As I hit the button, I heard him laugh, a deep, hollow sound that echoed through the vents. "You'll clock out soon, too." The elevator doors closed. The last thing I saw was his face reflected in the metal, just behind me, grinning. Aftermath. When the manager came in the next morning, I told him everything. He sighed and said, "You shouldn't have gone down there." They sealed the elevator permanently that week. A few months later, the hotel shut down. Too many complaints, flickering lights, strange noises, guests reporting someone knocking from under their floorboards. I still dream about that night sometimes. In the dream, I'm back in the elevator, and I can hear the dragging start again. Slow, steady, like someone pulling a body through water. When I wake up, I can almost smell that basement smell again. Damp, metallic, and sweet. And sometimes I find wet prints by my bedroom door.
I thought I'd seen everything after the incident in the basement. But nothing prepares you for when the dead start following procedure. In 2019, I took another night job at a modern business-style hotel. New building, digital locks, crisp uniforms, security cameras in every hall. The kind of place that makes you feel safe just because it smells like disinfectant and fresh linen. I told myself the other stories were just stress and lack of sleep. But evil doesn't live in old wallpaper. It lives in routine. And I was about to learn that some routines never die. First night. My first week was quiet until Wednesday. At exactly 3:15 a.m., the lobby doors slid open. A man stepped in. Mid-40s, clean suit, small leather briefcase. He looked exhausted but polite. "Checking in," he said, voice low. I glanced at the screen. There was no reservation under his name. "No problem, sir," I said, starting a new entry. How many nights? He smiled faintly. Just one. Normal enough. I gave him room 409, printed a key card, and watched him walk toward the elevator. When the doors closed, I felt a small chill, like a cold draft from nowhere. At 4 a.m., I glanced at the occupancy list. Room 409 showed vacant. I refreshed the system, still blank. No payment processed. No record. Maybe I had messed up the input. Night shift fatigue. That's what I told myself. The cleaning report. The next afternoon, housekeeping left a note for me. 409 occupied, guest refused service. But system says vacant. Please verify. I checked the key logs. The door had been opened 3 times after 3:15 a.m., each with an unregistered key card ID. No one else had a card for that room. I asked maintenance to check the log. They said the system was fine. Still, the housekeeper insisted she'd heard the shower running and someone moving inside. That night, I reassigned 409 as out of order and locked it digitally. No one could enter, or so I thought. At exactly 3:15 a.m., the elevator dinged. The man stepped out again. The return. Same suit, same briefcase, same tired eyes. "Checking in," he said. I stared at him. "Sir, you stayed last night, didn't you?" He looked confused. "No, first time here." My stomach dropped. "All right, name, please?" He said it, the same name as before. Every syllable identical. But this time, when I typed it, the system froze. A low buzz filled my headset, and all the lobby lights flickered once. He handed me a folded piece of paper. "Already filled the form," he murmured. It was the same registration form from the night before, dated March 12, 1987. Different logo, different management. Before I could speak, he turned and walked to the elevator. The doors opened without me pressing anything. Room 409. I called security. We went up together. The hallway camera showed no one exit the elevator, but the motion sensor outside 409 flicked on. The digital lock, still marked disabled, flashed green. We stood outside the door. From inside came the sound of a television, an old cathode tube hum, not the flat screen kind we had. Then footsteps. Security knocked. "Sir, hotel security, please open the door." The TV clicked off. Silence. Then, very softly, a voice from inside said, "Already checked out." The door opened a crack on its own. No one inside. Just a faint smell of cigarette smoke and cheap cologne. The bed looked slept in, indents on the pillow, sheets creased, but the air conditioning hadn't run in hours. We searched the entire floor. Nothing. Digging deeper. The next day, I searched old archives online, trying to match the hotel name on the paper he'd given me. It was from a different property, a small inn that used to stand on this same block before it was torn down in 1990. The name on the registration form matched a salesman who died there in a fire. Room number 409, time of death 3:15 a.m. Night 3. I considered quitting, but curiosity has claws. That night, I brought a camera, pointed it toward the elevator, and kept my eyes on the clock. At 3:14, the lobby got still. Even the air vents stopped humming. At 3:15, the automatic doors slid open again.
empty this time. But the camera showed something else. For one single frame, a figure of static stood in the doorway, shaped like a man holding a briefcase. The elevator opened on its own and closed. Up on the monitor, the number display climbed. 4. Then the feed went black. I ran upstairs. The door to 409 was ajar. Inside, the TV played static, and on the bed sat the briefcase. Old, cracked leather. Name tag, the same salesman's name. When I touched it, every light in the hallway went out. The emergency bulbs flickered red, and from somewhere close, a whisper. Checkout time. I dropped the case and bolted downstairs. By the time the lights stabilized, the elevator display read L. The doors opened. No one there. But the briefcase was gone. Aftermath. For the rest of my time there, room 409 stayed sealed. The manager blamed system errors, rewired the locks, even replaced the door. But the pattern never stopped. Every few months, a guest would complain about a man knocking at their door around 3 a.m. Sometimes they said he looked burned. Sometimes they said he was polite. Too polite. When I finally left that job, I took one last look at the logs. The file for 409 was empty, except for one note written in the system comments. Guest checked in, no record of departure. Epilogue. 2 years later, I stayed at a different hotel while traveling. Modern, clean, nothing spooky. At 3:15 a.m., the phone rang in my room. Half awake, I answered. "Front desk?" I mumbled. A man's voice replied. "Checking in. Room 409, please." Static filled the line. Then a click. I looked at my room key. 409.
The Night Clerk's Truth. People ask why I still work nights after all this. Maybe I'm waiting to understand what I saw. Maybe part of me knows I never left those places. Because some nights, when the lobby is empty and the clock hits 3:15 a.m., the printer whirs on its own and spits out an old registration card. The paper smells faintly of smoke and mildew. Name, unreadable. Room, always 409. Signature line blank. Waiting for mine.